In this set of videos we're going to look at new features in AGS Server Studio and Sentinel since we did the original videos on version 7. As you can see on screen in the title bar, the current version, or build as it's known, is version 10 or revision 10. The first couple of items are in the connection editor. So firstly, we've got specific support for IDS versions up to 12. It does go back to version 5, which makes this product pretty unique. So any features which are new to IDS, which are then handled in Server Studio, even if it's just an efficiency improvement behind the scenes, it will, depending on what version you declare here, it will run that the appropriate way or provide that new feature. We've also got the ability to set credentials for more than one connection. So let's say we had 2 instances on the one server and we changed the password on this server. I might then want to make that same change to the other instance on that same server. Clearly, in some unusual systems there might be dozens of separate instances. This could be a massively easier way of correcting a password. On the demo on the screen at the moment, we've only got the one connection to one instance. So next we're going to have a quick look at projects. So projects is a container within which you can put bookmarks to database objects just to collect things together in a neater way, be able to find things more easily. So I prefer to have projects as a separate tab within the Explorer pane. If you prefer, you can have them permanently displayed in a region at the bottom, which you get at with Preferences, Projects, under Object Explorer. You can then see projects underneath, and we add tables with right click, or add the project first of all. So let's say that I'm going to add objects into that project. We can pre-select just certain object types. I'm going to, just for this example, just look at tables in Stores Demo. Yeah, maybe I'll have these tables. Once you've got objects attached to a project, you can just explore into them just as if you'd opened them the longer way by finding the database and then the objects. So you can have objects from more than one database in the same project. So I can explore into customers, look at the columns, etc. You've now got a choice with how multiple tabs are presented. So to demonstrate that, if I open a number of SQL sessions against the Stores Demo database, in real life it's quite common you might end up with a number of different sessions, SQL sessions open, and you need to navigate around them. So you can see that I've now got too many tabs for them all to be visible on one line. And this is new behavior because on the older versions it would have spread down onto a second, third or fourth line with the different tab names all on display, whereas now the preferred behavior is that it's all displayed on one line and we can scroll through it with the arrows. Then that button gives you a drop down with the tab names. You can revert to the old behavior. You'd need to restart Server Studio, but you'd control it in here. So tab placement, you can go back to legacy, in which those tab names would be on multiple lines and you wouldn't have the drop down at the end. I think clearly it's preferred to have them all on one line to save screen space. Should you have a number of sessions open, maybe some of them are on a live system, some are on a test system, you really don't want to run an update statement, let's say, on the right machine. So to color code those tabs, in fact you do that at the connection level. So again, in the connection editor there, we can set a tab color. So perhaps we set it to red by convention for a live system. We've then got any tab related to that system will be shown red at the top. We've got a red border around the that particular tab, and we have that same color coding in the status bar in the Object Explorer. The Server Studio SQL editor and runner now supports variables in a SQL script. So just to show you that, if I close all but the Properties tab to start again, and I'm going to create one SQL window. I'm going to paste in a SQL statement to demonstrate this. So here we have the same kind of notation as you have in a shell script for a variable. So we've got $ and then curly brackets around the variable name. When I run that, then Server Studio will prompt for any variable names. It's remembered that from a last run, so I've got CA for California in double quotes. It needs the quotes, so Server Studio won't be able to work out whether it's character or numeric data being provided, so if it needs quotes you must provide that. Then if we run that, it runs that query with that parameter. Obviously this is aimed at being able to have one SQL script that you can rerun, just changing the parameter, which might be less error prone. You might even then be able to give people access to scripts that they don't have write permission, and they can just run that, providing different variables as needed. You can see there's also that button over there, so if you wish you can go in and set up a number of variables perhaps in advance, and then do the execution later. Where possible, Server Studio will use SQL rather than scraping the output of commands issued over Telnet or SSH in order to run a particular operation. With later versions of IDS, later versions of Server Studio, more and more of the functionality is over JDBC and not over command line. So examples of this would be, for example, the create, delete, DB space or chunk facility, or killing users. This can now all be done with the admin API. One further thing I'm going to show here is that you can now get a query plan back over SQL. So this doesn't actually work with variables, so I'm going to put that back to a literal value. So when I press that button as on previous versions, that gives you the query plan. Traditionally, it would have had to have run the query with set explain on the void execute, which drops a file called cqexplain.out on the server. Server Studio would then need to bring that file back to the machine running Server Studio, and then parse that to show it graphically on the screen. What we just did was done entirely over SQL. So under Preferences with Execution Plan, yep, that brought it back with a SQL API. There is a requirement that you've got a blob space that it can put it into, which is declared in the onConfig file. The other methods all require, one way or another, getting the explain.out file back. So that's clearly more efficient and might be easier to arrange in terms of network security. There's another limitation, which is you can't see the text version of the explain.out file because it was never produced. So as long as you're happy with the graphical representation of the query plan with the entity diagram over there and the node display over there, that will be a lot more efficient.